What's up, passionate Pokemon players? I'm Ryan, and we're here for another episode of the Hawks Pokemon Nest. I'm excited today as Phantasmal Flames is out, and I've got my first deck, which of course is going to be the Mega Charizard XEX. And happy to make this deck. I got all the cool, the deck box and stuff. I got the UPC going. So anyway, we're going to get into each card in the deck, why I included it, strategy on how to play the deck, strengths and weaknesses, and then we'll get into some other cards to consider swapping. So let's go. All right. Here it is. The deck's up on the left-hand side, and of course, it's also in the description so that you can export it straight into TCG Live. So here we go. So Mega Charizard XEX. He's 360 Mega Evolution, Pokemon 360 HP, and 1 attack only, but that's all he needs. Inferno X for 2 Fire Energy. Discard any amount of Fire Energy from among your Pokemon, and this attack does 90 damage for each card you discarded in this way. So this is kind of like basically Chien-Pao, right? It's literally Chien-Pao as a Mega Pokemon, and guess what? He's even got a buddy that is like Baxcalibur, but even easier. We have Oricorio EX, 190 HP EX Pokemon, and his ability Excited Turbo. As often as you like during your turn, if you have any Mega Evolution Pokemon EX in play, use this ability, attach a basic fire energy from your hand to your benched Pokemon, to one of your benched Pokemon. So basically, there's some slight differentiation there in that you cannot attach to your active Pokemon. So something to think about, you're going to have your Mega Charizard EX loaded up on energy before you use this, but you're basically able to just freely attach fire energy to your bench. And I mean, this is pretty significant because 90 damage is pretty solid. Think about this in a mirror match. Mega Charizard X has 360 HP. That only costs you 4 energy. I mean, I guess only is one way to put it, but you can pretty easily one-shot another EX or really any Mega Pokemon with that move for just 4 energy. And then think about that too. It costs you 8 energy to knock out 2 Megas in that. So it's a lot of energy, but if you go quickly enough, you're able to just finish matches extremely quickly. Some of my matches are just crazy quick because of this. Despite, like, you're thinking Megas matches are going to go longer with these higher HP, but this guy just ends things really quickly. So what else do I have paired with him? Well, I still think that the old school Charizard EX is a card to play. Infernal Rain is just a good card for 2 energy, and especially late game, you can just load him up with 2 energy and deal, up to 300 damage without having to discard. So maybe you're kind of getting late game and you're having issues getting your energy back in hand. I like him as a 2 of. You could maybe even reduce him down to 1, but that's up to you. I have the Mega at 3. Then, I do like this Charmeleon out here. Steady Fire Breathing for 1 energy does 40, and he also has 110 HP. So, in my opinion, you do have that 90 HP 151 version of Charizard. I think it's from there, where you can't damage him on the bench. But I like this one a little bit more. And then I do stick with the Tried and True Charmander 70 HP. I guess it's not extremely important here. You may be able to go and use the other one, the newer one, because I am not running Buddy Poffins. So, but I like this one anyway. I've got a full art on it, so, I'm kind of blinging out this deck. They didn't give this guy a full art, which is unfortunate, especially considering, this is a Charizard set. They should have done him like Bulbasaur in the base set, but I digress. All right, let's get into the trainer card. So Blowtorch is a card I think has a spot in this deck for one main reason. Blowtorch, I'm putting as 2 of. It's a new card here. Use this card if you discard a fire energy from your hand, discard a tool or special energy card from one of your opponent's Pokemon, or a stadium. I really like this in mirror. The first mirror I played, my opponent had a Hero's Cape on his Charizard X. And that is a lot. I mean, now that costs you 2 more energy because he's getting 100 HP. So now we're talking about 6 energy that we need to discard in order to win. So basically, this brings you down to 5. Is it great? Maybe, maybe not. I think so. And then obviously has other uses, discarding stadiums, special energies if you want. Don't think we really need it, but I think this is a nice card. We're running it as a 2 of. Next up, Energy Retrieval. I just blinged out. This one is the best one I could find. So I'll talk about later on in the other cards to consider. There's a lot of ways to go, but you need Energy Recursion in this deck. You need Energy Recursion. There's a lot of different ways to do it. This one to me is the simplest and easiest, and we don't need a ridiculous amount of recursion. You know, superior energy is obviously an option, but I don't necessarily like the idea of discarding. And also late game when we're getting Iono'd down to 1 and 2 sometimes, you know, we may not have anything to discard. So give me 2. I like this one, so this one I'm running as my recursion card. Okay. Nest Ball, I'm going Nest Ball 4 of and no Poffins because of the Oricorio, and really, like, we don't need a lot of basics on the bench. I'm only running 4 Charmanders, 2 Oricorios as my basics, so I'm going 4 Nest Balls and I'm good. I went with 2 Night Stretchers, so I went with a 2-2 combination of Energy Retrieval and then Night Stretcher because obviously we need our Pokemon rather than energy, but I like the flexibility. And I want them coming right back to hand. Rare Candy, we're going to go 3 of. Ultra Ball, Tried and True, 3 of. Arven, I want 4 Arvens because I do want to pull a tool, and maybe a great turn 2 play is going to be using the TM Evo to evolve into Charmeleon, or even a turn or 2 later going into Mega Charizard. And knowing that our Mega Charizard, unlike the Charizard EX that we're used to, you can evolve from deck. Remember, the effect of the other Charizard only works if you evolve from hands. Anyway, that's cool. Boss's Orders at 3, and then Firebreather. So this one is a very important card to the deck when we need so many energies. In my opinion, this is one of the more ridiculous cards I've ever seen in the game, and also, unfortunately, I can't bling it out yet, but search your deck for up to 7 basic fire energy cards, reveal and put into your hand. 7 energy, you're basically pulling your entire fire energies into hand with this card alone. It's crazy, and then being able to attach them freely, so I really like this card. I'm running it as 4 of because our opponents are going to love to Iono us. Reducing those, we're going to want to attach them really as soon as possible, but also be a little bit careful with it. I don't want to over attach and then run out of energies for a second Charizard, so I sometimes will leave 1 or 2 in hand just to make sure that, let's say I have a Charmander on bench that's not evolved yet, you know, I want to be able to prep for another one. Okay, Iono too. I've got my own Ionos because I want to be able to shuffle my cards, and when we're using Firebreather and then in the next turn, we're probably not going to have a huge hand after that. So Iono out of that. Lillie's Determination is obviously the go-to card. I'm running that at 4. Iono, I think I'm at 3. So I've got 7 ways to reset my hand because we don't have a draw engine other than that. Okay, Hero's Cape, I just think is an awesome card with our Mega Charizard X, and we have Arven to be able to pull it. Just seems like the best ace spec to me for this deck when we're just trying to go big. TM Evo, I'm running only at a 2 of. You know, we're really only going to use that maybe our first couple turns to get that evolution in there, and then I'm going to run 10 fire energies. Strategy, strengths, and weaknesses of the deck. Very straightforward deck. We're going to see Mega Charizard in the active, Oricorio on the bench. That's all your Pokemon you have. Attach energies to them. Make sure that you are ready to go. Also be strategic about how you're putting energy and how you're discarding energy. Obviously, you need 2 on your active Charizard, and then you also want to have at least 2 on a backup one, but you also want to be careful with your Oricorio to where if they boss it up, you could just retreat without being too much of an issue because we're not running any air balloons or anything like that, right? So manage that energy in a smart way, right? The strengths, it can one-shot anything, and it's not hard to do so, you know, compared to some decks where it may be a little bit of a challenge. This is an easy deck to just one-shot pretty much anything out there, right? It also has solid recycle power, not great. I mean, the energy retrievals and night stretchers are going to get you back grand total of 6 energies, but, you know, that's all you need. You're usually going to be discarding 3 is going to hit you for 270, so 4 is going to be what you're often doing. It's going to take out pretty much any EX. So it really depends on what your opponent's running. You are going to kind of hope they're running a Mega in there, and you've got to be a little bit careful with how you're using Night Stretchers. Also, that's why I really like thinking about our Charizard EX as maybe our finisher. You just get one of them on board with energy ready to go. That way, if you kind of get in where you know that your opponent's making you discard a little bit too many, you've got this guy to just come in and finish off the game for you. There's also lots of hand reset here, not necessarily a draw engine, but when you are using that Fire Breather, attaching 7 energies, or at least drawing 7 from your deck, that's going to thin your deck out pretty well to where you're able to do that. Also using Arvens into, TM Evos and things like that, just really work on thinning that deck out. Weaknesses, obviously, it's a Charizard or bust. If the games that I've had issues are the ones where I cannot evolve fast enough, and my opponent is just KOing my Charmanders before I can get them evolved, because there's obviously nothing more we can do about that, right? Energy management is also an issue. Just be really careful. If our opponent's not playing Megas, remember it's still often going to take us 4 energies to take out a stage 2. So that means it's 12 total energy you're going to need in order to KO 3 stage 2 cards. So just think about that. Mega versus Mega, especially Charizard, is an issue. I've found that it's kind of like who is going to evolve and get that first attack off is oftentimes the one who's going to win. So Mega versus Mega can be an issue when they're also one-shotting you for one. But I think what I found is I do pretty well against most other Mega decks because they can't one-shot me, whereas I usually can. So I like those ones. So maybe it should really say Mega Charizard versus Mega Charizard, or mirror match is the weakness. And some other cards to consider in this deck. As we see, there are a lot of ways to go with this deck, and we're only a couple days into the Phantasmal Flames era. I don't really do any testing prior to release, so I'm going to be messing around with this deck for a while, so I can readily admit that this is nowhere near the meta yet, but I think it's a good baseline. But I'll be testing a lot of these cards throughout, and I'm sure a lot of others already have, right? So Pheasantipede is the first one that comes to mind. I initially did have him as a 2 of, but just didn't quite think he fit in the deck. Maybe you can throw him in rather than Iono. But my other logic around this is Mega Charizard X is our main attacker. Are we really going to have that many knockouts here? And then he's just kind of sitting. Obviously, the Oricorio is also one that your opponents are going to target, but he's just kind of sitting there. He's not going to have a lot of uses. We may only get 1 knockout with a Mega, and our opponent knocks out the second one and never draw any cards. We're going to draw 3 once. So that's my logic behind that one. Chi-Yu, I think I'm probably going to be in the minority that's not running this card initially. The mirror matches I've played, that both opponents are, but I don't like it for a few reasons. I mean, I just don't like that he's basically going to be a free prize card for your opponent, especially in a Mega deck where, for example, if they're going to knock out a Mega Charizard X for 3, I throw in Chi-Yu for 2. For 1, now my opponent knocks him out next turn, and they're down to 2 prize cards. What are they going to do the next turn? They're going to boss up my Oricorio and go for game, and that took 3 Pokemon, whereas let's just get our energies back using recyclers or whatever other supporter card rather than using Chi-Yu, because they're using him for the flare bringer. Attach up to 2 basic energy cards from discard to 1. So I don't know. I mean, I guess you can also use Mega Flare of Envy, which is 140, but I doubt you're using him for that. We're using him as a recursion for fire energies. Not a big fan. Not a fan. Ceruledge is an interesting single prizer. I think honestly, he's probably one that more so you're going to play without the Mega Charizard. This is probably more of a single prize deck, but some people may throw him in as a 1 of on each, just in order to go for 220, maybe hit for game on that. So that's all the Pokemon in there. In terms of supporters or trainers, sorry, Mega Signal's one I would think about over Ultra Ball, to be honest. Ultra Ball we're really going to be using on whichever Charizard we want, but that's the thing, is I do want to have the option of grabbing my Charizard EX from Paldean Fates, or whatever the original was Obsidian Flames is the original, or even a Charmeleon. So that's why I don't like him. Then we've got the Air Balloon, which is going to reduce our retreat cost by 2. We don't have any Pokemon with more than 2, but I don't know. I just don't see it as super necessary. If I have to sacrifice an energy to retreat, so be it. However, if we do, I do like this package here. So this would be something to really think about, is the Air Balloon with Wally, right? So Wally, heal all damage from one of your Mega Pokemon EX. If you healed, return all energy to your hand to that Pokemon. So if our Mega Charizard is getting low on HP, we use Wally's Compassion, return those energies to hand. We can have our Oricorio on the bench, attach them, if we don't already have them, to one of our bench Pokemon, retreat the Mega Charizard hopefully into another Mega Charizard, attach those energies back using Oricorio. So this is probably the next thing I'm going to explore. I just have to think about, like, what am I going to remove to put him in. But I think the Air Balloon with Wally is a pretty decent strategy that could have some legs to it. Earthen Vessel, let's talk about a different way to actually retrieve energy from our deck. I don't think it's necessary here, but you do want to think about our Firebreather is a supporter. We can only use one. Maybe we've shuffled our deck because we don't have anything in hand. We get a Vessel and it can give us some energy. It's a solid one there. Okay, now the last 3 are going to be alternatives to the Energy Retrieval. Obviously, you can add them more than 2 if you want, and swap some other things in the deck. So Superior Energy is the easiest one to think about, but we have to discard 2, and then we get 4 energies. You know, I think in Qian-Pao it's necessary because Qian-Pao is only doing 60 per, but we don't need a huge amount of energy. I don't like the discard either, so I am going with that one. Now, Super Rod's obviously the other one to think about. That's kind of the balance, because the one downside of this one is I've got 2 Night Stretchers and I've got 2 Energy Retrievals, so it's giving me a max total of 6 energy, or 4 energy in 2 Pokemon, whereas just 2 Super Rods is going to match that. However, they're going into your deck. I like getting things straight to hand. And then from there, if we really want to think about focusing on Firebreather and getting energies, Energy Recycler gets you 5 straight into deck. So that is probably one to think about too. I don't know. I would probably go Super Rod over that because I want the option of getting Pokemon in deck too. But, you know, these are all ones. Let me know in the comments what you think. Am I like way off in my energy recursion cards, or am I spot on? Let me know. Alright, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Hawks Pokemon Nest. Hope you enjoyed this episode with the Mega Charizard X in there. Phantasmal Flames is here. Make sure you stay tuned for Friday. We are going to have the battles on this. I mean, this week is really Phantasmal Flames Charizard week, pretty much for the next 2 weeks, in fact, because we also have the Charizard UPC Ultra Premium Collection box that I will unbox on Wednesday. And in fact, we're going to continue Charizard week for a few more weeks. Next week, I'm going to actually get a my first video ever. I did it like oops all Charizard deck. I'm going to use all legal Charizards in my deck next week, so it will be far from meta but more fun. And the week after that, I may come back and get one more Charizard video with a kind of revised version of a hopefully more meta focused Charizard deck. So stay tuned. Phantasmal Flames era. I love Charizard, and I'm going to keep making decks on him. So hit that subscribe button, please, if you like what you saw. You can become part of the Hawks Nest, a fearless flock of fabulous folks who love to do what we love out here. And we've got plenty more content to come, especially if you like Charizard. But until then, we'll see you next time.